The Calm English Podcast.
From Soft English. Have you ever rehearsed a sentence in your head 5 times before saying it out loud? Just to make sure nobody would judge you for it?
Or chosen the safer outfit instead of the one you actually liked because you were imagining what people might think if you wore it.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Mia. And today on Soft English Podcast, we are talking about something almost everyone struggles with quietly, caring too much about what other people think of us.
And like our last conversation, this one is less of a lesson and more of an honest exploration. We want to understand this feeling together, where it comes from, why it is so persistent, and what it might look like to finally set it down.
Because the truth is, this is one of the most universal human experiences there is. It does not matter where you are from, how old you are, or how confident you appear on the outside. Almost everyone carries some version of this.
Mia, can I ask you something honest? When did you first notice that you cared a lot about what people thought of you?
Honestly, I think it started so early that I cannot even point to one moment. I think children learn very quickly which behaviors get approval and which ones do not. A smile, a compliment, a frown, silence. We learn the language of approval before we even learn to read.
That is such an interesting way to put it. The language of approval. And I think that language stays with us for the rest of our lives, even when we are adults making our own decisions.
Yes, because somewhere along the way, fitting in became connected to safety. If people approve of you, you belong. And belonging, for most of human history, meant survival. Being cast out of the group was genuinely dangerous.
So in a strange way, caring what people think is not some modern weakness. It is actually an old, deep biological instinct. Our brains are wired to scan for approval and disapproval constantly, almost without our permission.
Which means this is not something wrong with you personally. It is something built into being human. But the problem is, that instinct designed for small tribal groups thousands of years ago is now applied to an audience of millions, thanks to social media, comparison, constant visibility.
That is such an important point. We are not just worried about disappointing the few people physically around us anymore. We are worried about strangers online, people we will never meet, opinions that do not even matter to our actual lives.
And the exhausting part is that this worry never really finishes. You cannot please everyone. There will always be someone who disagrees, who judges, who simply does not like you for reasons that have nothing to do with who you actually are.
I think about a moment a few years ago when I posted something online. Nothing dramatic, just a simple opinion. And one person left a harsh comment. Just one person, out of hundreds who said nothing at all or were kind. And guess which comment I thought about for the rest of the week?
The harsh one.
Of course. The harsh one. My brain completely ignored every kind response and held on to that single negative voice like it was the only truth that mattered.
That is called negativity bias, and it is incredibly common. Our minds are built to pay more attention to threats and criticism than to praise, because historically, missing a threat was far more dangerous than missing a compliment.
So it is not weakness that makes us replay criticism for days while forgetting kindness within minutes. It is simply how our brains were built to keep us safe.
But understanding why this happens is only the first part. The harder part is learning to live differently despite it.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Because I think a lot of advice on this topic is very surface level. Just stop caring. Just be yourself. As if it is that simple.
It is definitely not that simple. But I think the shift begins with a question. Whose opinion are you actually protecting yourself from?
What do you mean?
I mean, often the people we are most afraid of disappointing are not people who are deeply invested in our lives. They are acquaintances, strangers, people whose opinion of us will not actually change our day-to-day reality in any meaningful way.
That is true. I think I have spent more energy worrying about people I barely know than about the people who actually matter to me.
And that imbalance is worth noticing, because the people who genuinely love you are rarely the ones judging your every move. They are usually far more forgiving, far more understanding than the imaginary critics living in our heads.
So part of this is learning to separate real relationships from imagined audiences.
Exactly. And the second part, I think, is learning to tolerate the discomfort of being disliked by someone without needing to fix it immediately. Because here is the truth nobody really wants to hear. Some people will simply not like you. Not because you did anything wrong, just because personalities clash, or perspectives differ, or sometimes for no clear reason at all.
And trying to be likable to absolutely everyone often means becoming a slightly blurrier, less authentic version of yourself. You round off your edges. You soften your opinions. You become easier to like, but harder to actually know.
Yes. And the irony is, the people who end up loving you the most are usually drawn to your real, specific, unpolished self, not the version you created to avoid criticism.
I think that is something worth sitting with. The version of yourself created purely to avoid judgment is rarely the version anyone falls in love with.
And here is something else that has helped me. Remembering that most people are not actually thinking about you nearly as much as you imagine. They are usually deep in their own thoughts, their own worries, their own version of this exact same fear.
That is humbling and comforting at the same time. We imagine ourselves as the main character being watched and judged constantly, when really, almost everyone is too busy worrying about how they themselves are being perceived.
Which means the audience we are performing for in our heads is often far smaller and far less interested than we imagine.
So what do we actually do day to day? Because understanding all of this intellectually is one thing. Living it is another.
For me, it starts small, choosing the thing I actually want, even when it might not be universally approved, saying the honest answer instead of the safe one, wearing the thing I like instead of the thing that blends in.
Small acts of being visibly yourself.
Exactly. And each time you do that, and the world does not end, your nervous system slowly learns a new lesson. It learns that being yourself is actually survivable. That disapproval, when it comes, is rarely as catastrophic as it feels in your imagination.
That makes so much sense. It is less about one dramatic moment of finally not caring, and more about repeated small evidence that you are allowed to exist as yourself.
And slowly, over time, the noise gets quieter, not gone completely. I do not think it ever fully disappears, but quieter, less controlling, less able to dictate your choices.
I think that is honest and important to say. This is not about reaching some final state where other people's opinions stop existing for you completely. It is about loosening their grip, little by little.
Yes, and giving yourself permission to be a work in progress on this. Some days you will care too much. Some days you will catch yourself shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. That does not mean you have failed. It just means you are human, and this is genuinely hard work.
I think that compassion towards yourself is just as important as any strategy we have talked about today.
Completely. Because if you punish yourself for still caring what people think, you are simply adding another layer of judgment on top of the original problem.
So maybe the real shift is not becoming someone who does not care at all, but becoming someone who notices the caring, understands where it comes from, and chooses, more and more often, to act anyway.
To act anyway, even while the worry is still there. That feels much more achievable than waiting for the worry to disappear completely before living your life.
If you are listening today and you recognize yourself in this conversation, we just want you to know something simple. The fact that you care so much usually means you are thoughtful, considerate, and aware of the people around you. Those are not bad qualities.
They just need a little balance, a little more room for your own voice alongside everyone else's. You are allowed to disappoint people sometimes. You are allowed to be misunderstood. You are allowed to simply be yourself, even when that is not universally approved.
Take care of your mind and take care of your English. This is Ethan.
And this is Mia. You have been listening to Soft English. Bye, everyone.
Bye.